Welcome to Fearless Females, where ambition meets resilience. Meet your guide, Lorie Jones, owner of Fearless Financial Advisors. Join her and remarkable women executives as they uncover the triumphs and transformative moments shaping extraordinary careers. Ready to be fearless? Let the journey begin.
Good morning, and thank you again for joining us here on the Fearless Females podcast. I really appreciate all you listeners who keep coming back and listening, and sometimes you send me comments every once in a while on what you've heard. I'm trying to grow my listener base because I really think that these stories should be heard. These are really amazing women. So if you can go on and follow or sign up or like or subscribe or whatever it is you do on the little buttons on the podcast on your particular podcast listening system, to show that you're interested, I would really appreciate it. So today we have one of my new BFFs, Libby Greiwe. She's on with us today, and she's from the Efficient Advisor, and she is literally everything I wish that I could be when I grow up. She's got her stuff together, she's process-oriented, she's organized, she's driven, and she makes it look easy. But she's also, and this is why we don't hate Libby, this is why we love her so much, is because she shows us when she messes up. She shows us how she recovers, and she says a lot of times, hey, perfection is overrated. And so it lets you see those mistakes and how she learns from them and recovers and gets better. And I love that. One of my favorite parts of our conversation was when she said, I remember sitting in my office just sobbing, I can't do this anymore. Like, this is not sustainable for me. I'm not happy. And then she started doing things differently and more aligned with her values. And I think this is so powerful. I think this is really where we find our power, when we come to the realization that we are truly enough and we can't do it the same way that we've been doing it, and really just sustain that. We give to so many different people, so many different groups, kids and spouses, and just everyone in our sphere. And when we come to the realization that we really are enough and that we're going to live closer to our values and be aligned with them. And sometimes we don't do it perfect. Sometimes we do it a little bit imperfectly, but it's going to bring us to a place that makes us fulfilled and happy. And happy, not sobbing, is a good thing. So I loved my conversation with Libby. I hope you guys love it too. Let's get started. So I am so excited today. We have Libby Greiwe. She's the owner of the Efficient Advisor, and we are like BFFs, like spiritual sisters. I swear to you, like the idea of productivity is my thing. So thank you so much, Libby, for doing this for us.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. Thank you for having me.
So my very first question is my favorite. I am a reader. I love reading. Tell me what your favorite book is.
Okay, same. So I struggled with this question because I'm like literally all of them. I want to read all of them. So I have like two different categories. So if I had to choose for fiction, which feels like it doesn't happen nearly as often as it does, this is so embarrassing, but my guilty pleasure are Bridgerton's books. Like, oh, yeah. I totally dive into this like period romance where women are so oppressed. And I mean, obviously I'm here for the good parts, but the women are so oppressed, and it's just such a fascinating point in time for me. And I love that the main characters in this book are always women who are trying to break out of that mold that society had cast them in.
Mm-hmm. Just a little bit different.
Fiction. Yes. Yeah. So my favorite business book is one of these, like I probably read 1 to 2 like personal development business books, but there's one called Built to Sell by John Morlow. Okay. It is the most oddball funny little book. It's a business book about, productizing your service and building your business to sell and to have an exit strategy, but it's written like a novel. It is just like the most quirky, obscure little book, but it's done in such a way that it's a super fast read, which as an ADHDer, I love a good, like, get it done in 90 minutes to 2 hours, but it's so impactful. And I remember a lot of the details better because it was told like a fiction story. Mm-hmm. And I've recommended it to, oh my gosh, probably hundreds of people at this point. And everybody comes back to me and is like, I loved that book. Yeah. And it's just so quirky and weird.
I love it. I do. I love an idea of telling a story because I will get done reading a book sometimes and I'm like, I literally have to go right back and read it again because I've been multitasking or my mind wanders or I'm like, what
For
did I just
sure.
read? And so if they put it in the idea of a story that sticks with me, I'm like, oh, this is the best. So I love that suggestion.
Yeah. And I love anytime someone takes a risk, right? There's not a lot of business books that are written like a fiction novel. And so I just find it so endearing.
I know. There's one that I was reading by Goldwaith is the author, and it's a story about, of all things, it's like a supply chain issues, and where you end up with like a supply chain slowdown, right? You actually would probably love it, and so
I probably would.
yeah, I read it for my MBA school, and I am like, I was recommending it for the next year. I thought that was the best book because it just, for some reason, drew me in. And one would think that supply chain management and interruptions were not the thing. So yeah, so I get it. When they write a good business book that sticks with you and like makes a difference and like interests you, like you totally or go for that. Well, Libby, tell me a little bit about your journey. Like, where did you get started? How did you end up where you're at today? And like, what do you do? Like, tell us just a little bit about you.
Well, we were joking about this before we started recording that, like, what is your job title? And I'm like, I don't know what I do. Can I just say literally everything? I do all of it. So I had sort of an atypical, I always joke, like, it was a really natural path to becoming a financial planner. So I went to college originally for engineering physics. Then I went into sports marketing and worked for the Cincinnati Reds baseball team. And then I became a financial planner. So, it makes tons of sense, just your typical financial planning journey. But I started my practice back in 2004. I grew it to a 7-figure firm as a solo advisor. And we kind of became, quote unquote, known for doing that while working just 3 days a week so that I could just be a super present mom. Like, it was something that was really, really important to me. So I built this practice and then I sold it in 2019. And somewhere along the way, advisors all over the country started getting wind of what I was doing, that there was this really young female who was working part-time and just totally crushing it. And I started speaking and coaching other advisors somewhere around 2014. And eventually I sold my financial planning practice, took a 2-year sabbatical, and then came back to the coaching side of things. I just felt really, really strongly called to help other advisors build their businesses in a way that allowed them to serve their clients really well, but that also served their own life. And I have a real heart and passion for people who are so good at this business, but yet always on the verge of burnout or just constantly living in that state of overwhelm. Like, those are my people. So podcaster, author, speaker, business coach, I don't know, literally all of it.
All of the things. So that is so interesting because I love the idea. Like, I'm always encouraging women. I'm like, this is a really good business for a mom because you can adjust a little bit, like a lot of times your clients need you during off hours and then you can go to the school presentations and stuff like that. So it's so interesting that you built your practice when you were building it around that idea of being present for your family.
Yeah. I mean, and that was one of the beautiful things. Like, I can remember being like, like my super, I wish I knew what I knew now, like dumb 22-year-old starting my business and thinking like, oh, being an entrepreneur is going to be so amazing. I can sleep till noon and work till midnight, and I'm going to have all this freedom and flexibility. And like, while that was all true, right, it was starting to really figure out like who I was as a woman and what I really wanted in life. And it was very easy. I mean, I was working around the clock when I started my practice, 70, 80 hours a week. And I remember just finding out I was pregnant and I was like, this is great because I want a baby, but this is so scary because I've built this big beast. And I remember being in that position where I, was looking at my growing belly thinking like, okay, I want to be the world's greatest mom. And I don't want to sacrifice the dream that I have for my business. Like, kind of like your typical woman, right? I want all of it. I want to do it all. And really, really realizing that I had to build some super strong boundaries in my life. I had to get really, really clear on what my priorities were. And I had to get really good at saying no.
Man, and do you teach that like what you do now? Is that everything? Do you teach people to say no? Because I need that class.
Well, one of the biggest tricks that I learned, and this is, I do teach this like inside of our group coaching program for financial advisors, is every time you say yes to something on your calendar, before you say yes, you literally have to look at it and say, what am I going to say no to in order to say yes? And you have to verbalize it out loud. And so for me, that was a really powerful exercise that if someone was like, hey, do you want to volunteer to be on the PTA? Do you want to take on this speaking engagement? Do you want to write this article? And I'd look at the amount of time that it would take, and I'd have to say, okay, here's what I'm going to say no to. I'm going to say no to going to the gym because I'm going to have to show up early to get this done. I'm going to have to say no to my kids because it's going to take me away from my family for an additional evening. And I just had to say it out loud, because one thing I found that financial advisors specifically, and really, any female business owner, we're so bad at math. Like we just say yes, yes, and we add, and we never think about what we have to subtract in order to make that happen.
Yeah.
And we just kind of keep going and trying to I'll fit it in somewhere. And the only one that pays the price for that is you, right? Mm-hmm. You're the one that doesn't eat healthy, doesn't take care of yourself, don't get the downtime that you need, and is just constantly in go state. And so that was something for me that verbally articulating it out loud, what I was going to say no to in order to say yes to it, and making sure that the balance was there, was a great exercise.
I love that. I love that idea. And you do, as a woman, you do tend to say yes and yes and yes. And you try and do everything for all people all the time. And that's why we have higher burnout rates. And that's why we have harder times, making sure that we have that balance in our life. Because you may not have to have a perfectly balanced life. I think that there are times that work will take priority and times that home will take priority and stuff like that. But you do have to have at least balance in your life. Like sometimes home needs to take priority. It can't always be work that's taking the priority, or always these things. So
yeah, I know. I wish I had a man's brain sometimes. I'm always so jealous of how men can just compartmentalize everything so well. And that whole, men's brain are waffles, women's are spaghetti. They can just be nope, I'm in my home box now, and that's where I am. And nope, I'm in my work box, and that's where I am. And I'm always so envious of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I know. That would be a great skill to learn. So tell me a little bit, Libby, about, is there an investment that you've made in yourself along this journey where you can kind of look back and be like, oh my goodness, I am so glad I did that. It made just all the difference in my world.
One of the biggest things, and if I could go back and tell my younger self this, or as I meet younger women, just telling them to, just because you can figure it out doesn't mean you have to. And hiring a coach to help expedite whatever process you are on and investing in yourself. So whether that's hiring a therapist to help you improve your emotional intelligence and to help you think through certain circumstances and situations, hiring a business coach if you're a business owner, hiring a personal trainer if you're trying to work. I have just found that, we have Google, we have ChatGPT, we can literally figure anything out these days, but having someone who has done it, has that experience, is emotionally invested in you, and helping you, just kind of saying, instead of you figuring it out, saying, I've got the track that you can run on, and I can help you do this exponentially faster than you could on your own. Gosh, I really wish I would have done that earlier in my life, because when I did make that investment and hire coaches, the results were always so much better and so much faster. And man, I could have had so much more success with certain things earlier on if I would have just invested in myself, as opposed to always feeling that it was selfish to spend that kind of money on my own personal development.
That's a really smart thing. That's just a really wise idea too. The idea of investing in you in all areas of your life, and trying to find people that can get you there a little bit faster, a little bit smarter. I had one woman that I was talking to, very successful, multi-million-dollar business. And she said, you have no business doing some of these things. Like doing your own bookkeeping, you should not be in there. You're just going to make a mess of it, because that's not your passion. You hate it. You don't want to do it. And you put it off and you don't do it very well. Like just invest in someone to either help get you there faster or do it for you if you're not interested in doing it. I like that idea.
Oh, for sure. The other investment and this one's a silly one, but LASIK. Oh my goodness gracious. For anyone who is like, I wonder if I should get LASIK, the answer is yes, you absolutely should. It is the most amazing experience to be able to just like open up your eyes and be able to see in the morning. Like it is unbelievable to swim in the ocean and to be able to not worry about your contacts falling out all of the time. That would be the other one.
That's so funny, Libby, because I've actually heard that answer before.
Really?
Yes.
Stop it.
Yes, it was so funny. I had LASIK as well, and I've been through like a couple of years without glasses, and it's just amazing. It really
life
is
altering.
Yeah, life altering. It's so weird that you would think that, but this is like the third time that someone said that. So apparently, go get LASIK every day.
Yes, there you go.
So what about some really bad advice? Have you ever gotten what's the worst advice that you've gotten? And did you take the advice or did you not take it? Did you learn something from it?
Yeah, I had a lot of bad advice, so being in an industry that is, arguably 80 to 90% male, I had a lot of just very mansplaining male advice coming at me all the time. And one in particular, so I was with a broker dealer and they were starting to identify a few advisors who were running these crazy amazing practices. And they wanted us to host workshops for other advisors to come in and see how we were doing things. And I remember they approached me about doing it. And I wanted to share about how I was working part-time. That was really what I wanted to build my workshop around. And I remember a male kind of management boss person at the time telling me that if that's how I'm going to market this, that nobody will be interested. Nobody who is a successful advisor, and he said specifically men, no one is going to give a crap about working part-time. If you kind of use that as the premise or kind of the illusion of what you were trying to accomplish. And I was like, well, no, it's more about systems and processes and being more effective with your time. So man, even if you want to work full-time, you might as well make 2 or 3 times as much money.
Right.
And he was like, that's what you, and I was like, no, I really want to talk about working less. And I remember him saying, if you do that, this will be the biggest failure and you will regret it. And I redid all of my marketing materials. We renamed the workshop. And at the last minute, I pulled the plug and went with my original idea.
Uh-huh.
And I am so glad that I did. We had more men than women come to our workshop. We had hundreds of advisors over the next year or two that were all so excited about having a better work-life balance, that were excited about working less. And, I know we're in this industry, and I feel like this is just true of society in general, where more is more, right? Why have a business if you can't 10x your 10x to the 10x and 100x your 10x, and it's always about scale, more. And there is this subset of the population that wants success and wants a life. Not everybody wants to work 80 hours a week, 100 hours a week. Not everybody wants to 10x their 10x. And there are people who want to grow and do really well and have really rich, full lives. And I'm so glad. I totally let him get to my head. I spent so many hours reworking everything. And I'm so glad at the very end, I was talking to a male colleague and he was like, I might not want to admit it publicly, but I would love to do what you're doing. And I was like, you know what? You can't be the only one that feels that way. And I'm so glad that I didn't follow that, because now I've built an entire business in my post-advisory life built on the premise of working less. And I still get this imposter syndrome every now and then that well, that's not what people want. People want a 10x. You still need to talk to the masses about making more money and tripling your revenue per hour. And while that's all good and true, I'm so glad that I stuck with it, because this business has grown and become successful because there's so many people that still identify with that idea.
Mm-hmm. I like that idea. Well, and it does tend to in order to have more women in financial services, which is admittedly and unabashedly my goal in life, right? You kind of have to make the environment fit them. We have caretaking responsibilities that a lot of times fall almost entirely on our shoulders. You've got single moms out there, and in order to have the kind of life and provide the kind of life that we want for our families, we do have to do it in more efficiently in less time. And we're not looking at 10xing or 100xing. I mean, it'd be great, but like we're looking at making sure that we're at our kids' kindergarten programs and we're showing up for their, for their sports events and for those important moments, because you can go back and look at your life. And I promise you, if you don't put the things that are at the top of your values list at the top of your priorities, you are going to regret where you end up.
Yeah. And it's so interesting. So we're recording this before Mother's Day. And I was on Instagram, I think last night, and I got this. I follow this woman who's a hospice nurse. And I just think she is so interesting. And she's always sharing like life lessons from her clients that are dying. And she was sharing that the number one word, that's like the last word that someone says with their dying breath, is mom.
Oh.
And of course I'm like, super emotional about it with Mother's Day coming around the corner and my kids getting older and stuff. And it was just this like amazing reminder to me that like you are literally their everything when they're little people and they're big people. And it's such a blessing and such a gift. And like, they're not saying money and they're not saying, second home or boat. They're saying mom. And I thought that was just like such a great reminder that what really matters is what really matters.
Yeah. And do keep it at the top. Like I've got a vision board here with my values where I put my values on that. And then I look at my calendar and say, hey, am I doing the things that are congruent with what I believe in, or is this not quite right? And I do that with my, the things I spend money on too, like my investing. And if I have a client that tells me that they believe, their number one value is family, and they're working 90 hours a week and spending no time with their family, I'm like, we gotta fix this, because you're saying that this is your value, but you're not putting it as your top value, and you're not going to have a good life until the two come together. So I love that you mentioned that. I think that's really, really important to remember.
Yeah, I love that. What's that saying? Show me your calendar and I'll show you your priorities.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I love that.
What about something that I'm not going to say regret, but is there something you would do differently if you could kind of go back and take all the knowledge and everything that you've learned and go back to a situation that you handled and redo it? What would you do?
It's such a hard question. So like as a woman of faith, like I firmly believe everything happens the way it's supposed to, and there's a silver lining at everything. And, there's so many things that, in my life, I have lots of challenges and struggles that I'm like, man, if I could go back, would I not do this or would I do that? And I think, well, no, because that all was part of that beautiful process of what got me to where I am and made me the woman that I am today. So if I had to like really pick something, it would be when I sold my financial advisory practice. Mm-hmm. I wasn't really ready to sell. My now ex-husband was going through some major mental health stuff. And I felt like I was on somebody else's timeline. And I think that's kind of a reoccurring thing for me. Like when I think about regret or whatever version of that word, it's when somebody else kind of pushed me into something and made me do something that didn't feel right in my gut. So while I'm really glad I sold my business, I'm really glad it led to what I do now. It led to a beautiful 2-year sabbatical where part of that we lived in Hawaii. I mean, it was a lot of really good things, but having somebody else dictate that timeline, it still feels like I didn't love the way that it all transitioned. I wish we would have had longer. I think the attrition I just wish I would have been able to stay present for my team, for my clients, for myself a little bit longer than we ultimately did. So that's one of those things where it's just when somebody else is driving the decision or pushing it and something feels off inside, I wish, and I feel like those were all learning opportunities for me to trust my gut a little bit more
Mm-hmm.
and to use my voice more and to just kind of make sure that what I'm doing is in alignment, kind of like you were just saying, and that my opinion in it all really actually does matter.
Mm-hmm. I find sometimes I do have a hard time with making my voice heard, and it's not anyone not listening; it's me not saying, and coming out with that. So how would you have done that differently and been authentic? Kind of listen to your gut. Like, how would you have? What would that look like?
Yeah, I feel like it just like I should have used my voice more and put my foot down more, especially when it was my business. And kind of letting other people, the guys that were buying me, my now ex-husband, kind of like determine some of the factors. And I remember feeling like, well, I don't want to disappoint people. And gosh, we already have someone who's in a bad position and I don't want to be a burden to them. And right, like that kind of that I always want to make sure everybody else feels really comfortable
Mm-hmm.
and that everybody else is happy. And in that constant, like putting myself on the back burner in service of others.
Mm-hmm.
And I do feel like that was the growth piece for me in all of that, was that even when I was being told like, shh, don't say anything, like, let me handle this, or I want to, like my ex-husband wanted to broker the deal and like work through all of the legal details because he was like, well, that's not your job. Your job is to transition. And I was like, no, I really kind of want to be part of that. And I was like, no, I'll take care of that. You take care of that. That way we can get it done faster. And there's a piece of me now that I wish I would have just put my foot down and been like, no, I'm not signing anything. Absolutely not. This is my business. This is my baby. Versus I always try to approach it as that this is our business and this is our baby. And instead of just really stepping into that, like, no, I did this. This was me. And that's okay for me to say it was me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I love that. Yeah. And I think that like maybe taking some time and kind of writing down, like how do you put yourself out of the, because I've been in those situations where you need the contracts or you feel like you're getting a lot of pressure to get this contract signed.
Mm-hmm.
And so how do you take a step back and say, okay, I need to think a little bit about this. I need to, write down what I really want and make sure that I need people to take a step back and stop pressuring me to sign this contract or get this deal done because I need to feel like right about it rather than it's most important for me to feel good about this.
Yeah. And that's really the hardest part was like, okay, I get to pause. I get to step back. I get to take a few breaths. I don't have to make a decision right away. If it's meant to be, it will happen. And that was just a really big takeaway for me, is that I can slow down and I can think about things and I don't have to respond immediately. And so it was like, even now I see it show up in speaking contracts. Well, they'll have some crazy clause in there. And I think to myself, well, I mean, I guess if I want this job, I have to. And it is amazing to me when you push back and say like, oh, I'm not really comfortable with that clause. The attorneys on the other side will go, oh, okay, we'll take it out. And you're like, well, that was way too easy. It's just been a big journey of finding my voice and using it.
Mm-hmm.
And not everybody is going to respond to it poorly.
Yeah, I love that. I really think that's something so important to remember on your journey up, is to find your voice and use it. A lot of times people aren't silencing you. You're silencing yourself. Yeah.
Yes. And this one negotiation I was just in, I remember about they were having these weird little fits about funny little things. And I was like, I'm not going to sign that. And finally I was like, you know what? You guys came to me. If you'd like me to speak at your event, I would love to do that. And here are my terms. If you aren't okay with it, that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
We don't have to work together. And of course it's amazing then, the very next day, oh, here's everything that you wanted. And we took out all the stuff that you weren't comfortable with. And here you go. And it's just that constant reinforcement. And also I think that confidence in self that, you know what, if this doesn't work out, it's not because I'm disagreeable or it's not because I'm being a Karen or kind of a pain in the butt. It's I'm doing what's best for me, for my IP, for my family. And at the end of the day, what's supposed to be for me will be.
Mm-hmm. That's so hard too when you're on the early end of things where you're just like, but
For
this is
sure.
the difference between like macaroni and cheese and
Right. And paying a
actual
mortgage.
hamburger.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
That's right.
But it is true. If you can hold those lines when it does make a difference whether or not you get that contract, then you can hold those lines later on. And it's so important to set up those boundaries and listen to your gut. And really, I really appreciate you saying that. It makes a huge difference. So, Libby, what about if you could go back and talk to your 20-year-old self? Is there anything you'd tell her?
Ooh, yes. So in addition to sharing with her that she's allowed to take up space and that her voice absolutely matters, the other thing I would share with her would be look for the people who are clapping for you. And look for the people who genuinely are there for you, excited for you, and the ones who aren't clapping for you, walk away. Don't invest time and energy, and surround yourself with people who are excited for you, excited for your growth, happy for your successes, not coming from a place of jealousy, but from a place of like inspiration and admiration. And find a group of women that you can clap for and have those same experiences. And that, like if I could just warn her about the people who can't clap for her and how to just stay away from them, I totally would.
I love that idea because there are those people in your life, and if you keep putting effort into them, then you lose out on some of the people that really truly do believe in you. And your mom.
Yeah.
Your mom is definitely one of those.
Right. Yeah, mom. Yes. And that's really, that's a big piece of it, right? Like, you want, and that's part of that like emotional growth that I feel like I had so many things happen that like led to that, where it was like, okay, I don't want to not be able to share my success with somebody because I'm worried about how it's going to make them feel about themselves. Mm-hmm. So I want to be able to be around people that I can share something great and not worry about their reaction. Let them be responsible for how they feel about it. Mm-hmm. And not always be like, oh, well, if I say this, I'm going to make everybody else feel small, or, I can't take up too much spotlight because everybody needs a spotlight. And just really realizing like, I'm not creating shadows. There's enough light for everybody. Mm-hmm. And if people want to step into that spotlight, they absolutely can. And I'd love to give them a hand and help them up in any way that I could, and finding women that felt the same way.
Yeah, I love that. I had one of my guests she said something really memorable, and I've repeated it a million times, but she says, never make yourself smaller to make somebody else feel big. I like the idea of there's enough light for everybody, like there's you help other people grow, and it just expands. There isn't that scarcity mindset, that abundance, that there's enough for everybody.
Absolutely.
What about, did anything scare you? Does anything scare you when you first started your career? Does it still scare you now? Like, how would you learn?
When I first started, as you know, with financial services, there's just so much to know. And I remember just being afraid of not being able, like, how can I do a really good job for people if I don't literally know everything that there is to know about everything? And I had to embrace being a beginner. And it was not a comfortable feeling for me. I did not love the idea of fake it till you make it, learn as you go. Like, that was not natural for me. I was so afraid of making the wrong choice or going in the wrong direction, or, even worse, taking somebody's life savings and leading them down the wrong path. And I really had to learn how to just do things messy, and just doing something is better than doing nothing perfectly. And just moving forward in this idea of just constantly being in forward motion and just doing it messy. And I can always come back and make it fancy later. And then frankly, by the time I actually mastered something, at least in our world, right, it would change as soon as I mastered it. The tax code would change, or something, legal requirements or DOL, something would change everything anyways. So I used to just be so scared of being a beginner. And now I feel like I just really embrace it and lean into it. And I'm actually in a position now where I am enjoying being a beginner at something and like fumbling my way through it. And I think people like when you're not perfect and you kind of air some of that. So like right now I'm going through this journey where I'm learning to use teleprompters and I'm sharing it and all of the mistakes and like the crazy stuff that's happening. And I'm finding that people are just like drawn to it. And like inside my group coaching program, there's a couple of videos that I made with a teleprompter. And I used AI. You could tell I was reading and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to practice this and get better at it. So I used AI to correct the eye gaze to make sure it looked like I was looking at the camera. Well, the AI like gave me a few moments where my eyes are black and it looked like, Satan has taken over, and just like, I'm not going to edit it because it's actually kind of funny. And I want people to know, like, you don't have to be perfect in order for the content to be great. Like, you just have to keep moving forward. And it's one of people's favorite videos because it's so stupid and silly.
Yeah. I like that idea too, that like there's just growth. There is growth that comes. And as long as you're willing to learn and try and grow, and there are times when I've had to go and say, hey, I made a mistake on that. I'm so sorry. Mm-hmm. Like this particular piece of paperwork isn't the one I needed. And I really need you to, sign another piece of paperwork. And I'm sorry, it was my fault. It was my mistake. I think that people are willing to give you that grace if you always are just trying your very hardest to do.
And embracing that humanity and giving yourself the grace for it too.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about throughout your journey? Have you had any unique challenges because you were a woman?
Girl, yes. Like, how long do we have? How long of a podcast is this? Oh my gosh, absolutely. Being in a male-dominated industry, starting when I was 23, having a really fast escalation. So within just a few years, I was in the top 25 of my organization, and just I would get mistaked at conferences for being a secretary, or people asking me if I was there with my dad. I can remember going to conferences with my husband, and even though I had, the lanyard on with like all the ribbons like down to my knees, people would still walk up to my husband and shake his hand and congratulate him for being there. And it was so interesting. And I remember like early on, I always joked that I was surrounded by the FBFs, and I called them fat, bald, and 50. And now that I'm like, chubby, balding, and 40, like I'm kind of like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have used that term, but here we are. And I just remember it was like this atmosphere where all of the few women that there were, everybody was trying to be more masculine, like masculine in the way that they dressed and the way that they did business and the way that they designed their offices. Mm-hmm. And it was such a hurdle for me to figure out how to just embrace my femininity in such a male-dominated industry and actually use that femininity to my advantage without constantly being made to feel like guilty for it, or to be, like pat on the head, like, oh, that's so cute. That's so sparkly and pretty. And you're so feminine, it really was a struggle. And I can remember being on panel after panel where the moderator would ask me about what it's like parenting and like being a mom and working, and like, what about my mom guilt? And it was interesting because they never asked my panel mates. And I want to be like, well, I want to hear what Jeff thinks about dad guilt, right? Like, it was so obvious that I was different. And it used to make me crazy because I hated the fact that like, just because I was a woman, you're asking me about guilt over parenting and working, and you're not asking that of my male counterparts. But at the same time, like, I also appreciated the conversation because it is just different.
Yeah. And it does tend to, when I did Fearless Financial Advisors, I said, the only thing I want is a little bit of pink in my logo. Like, can we just do a little bit of pink? It's green, it's blue, it's the business suits. I just wanted a little bit that felt like me. So yes. I fully understand that. And it is hard sometimes to show up. I bet though that it was really nice to have an example of a fearless female advisor that others could kind of look up to, because I didn't have that. I realized for years there was just no one that looked like me. As you went to conferences, there was, but like in the companies I worked for small RIAs, there just isn't a whole lot of women in those spaces. And so it must have been nice to have a female advisor that they could look up to and say, if she can do it,
one of my favorite things now, so doing a lot of keynote speaking at conferences, I love going to a conference and actually having to wait in line at the ladies' room. It's like so exciting for me because I'm like, oh, look how many women there are. We actually have a line for the bathroom, where that was never a problem for me when I first started back in 2004, right?
Yeah.
Being one of the 1 or 2 women in the room. Now it's like so cool that there's enough women to cause a backup at the restroom.
I know. I've talked to a woman engineer and she's like, I never wait for the bathroom. She's like, I'm waiting for the day that I go to the conference and I wait for the bathroom. Libby, what is the thing you are most proud of?
Oh, I feel like the obvious answer is my kids. Like I always feel like that's the go-to, as a mom. Like, and I am. They are like my absolute greatest invention of all time. But really, I would say if I had to pick, it would be my resiliency. Like this resiliency that I have built as a woman, as a business owner, continuously building this bank of proof, this evidence that I can bounce back, that I can transform, that I can do things that I didn't think I was capable of, that things didn't really actually break me when I thought that they would.
Mm-hmm.
And whether things have gone well for me or wrong for me, that I've had to overcome a lot personally. And it's just, I'm so grateful for the struggle.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I've overcome something, whether it's big or small, it's reinforced that everything is figure outable and that this too shall pass. And then as long as I, show up with intention, that I'll be able to get through just about anything.
I love that. My very first value is we can do hard things. And I think that's what you're talking about. Like you do the hard things, you learn from the hard things. And then next time you do the hard thing, you're like, oh, I've done this. I'm actually good at it now.
And we have so much imposter syndrome. It's like, I'm now like, you're like, look back, like, look at all the stuff that you've done. I think like women, we have a really distorted, broken review mirror where we tend to like forget, like, remember you gave birth? Like, and you like created a human with lungs and an eyeball, and then like you brought them into this universe, and then you kept them alive for 16 years already. Like, that's amazing. Like, you have done amazing things, and you are capable of incredible things. And we tend to just like forget all of that. And we don't tend to think about how much we've actually overcome. So reminding ourselves to pat ourselves on the back and embrace that messy middle that is everything, knowing that you've got all of the evidence to show that you've survived literally everything to this point.
Yeah. And you can do it. You can do it. Yeah. Love that. Any advice for a young lady who's just starting down this path that you're successful at?
Yes. You do not come last. You do not come last. It is okay for yourself to be on the list of people that you are trying to please. And you are a whole person with hobbies and interests and needs. And saying yes to something means that you have to say no to something else. So saying yes to yourself is not selfish. It's actually one of the best things that you can do. And by investing in yourself, giving yourself space, by being a whole person and not being wantless or needless and having unique desires and dreams of your own, makes you a huge role model to other women, to other men, to your children. And boundaries are really important, and protecting your inner peace is really important. But it would really be, you are not last on your to-do list. You should be first. And something I started doing a few years ago, and it's now become an annual tradition for me, is it's called Camp Libby. And every year I pick a day. So it started off as just a day, and now it's grown into, it's 4 days where every year I take off from all responsibilities, no kids, no spouse, no job, and I do whatever I want for those 4 days. So all the stuff that I'm like, oh, wouldn't that be so nice to lay in a hammock and read a book? Or wouldn't that be so fun to go to Home Goods and walk around for 3 hours? But when you do, you feel guilty that you should be getting something done, or you have all these projects at the house. So I've just started carving out time for myself and doing it without any guilt whatsoever. And if I decide I want to sleep on the couch for 4 hours and watch trashy television, that's okay. And I'm not going to judge myself for it, and just giving myself that freedom to explore my interests and do things that don't feel productive or maybe aren't like viewed as like, oh, that's how you should spend your spare time. But man, it has been transformative by putting myself on the list of things to do.
I love that. Camp Libby. I love that. I'm going to steal it. I totally am.
I have a logo and everything. I mean, I make it into like a whole thing.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's the best. I'm totally going to steal it. Well, thank you so much, Libby, for spending some time with us and just sharing your journey and your story and your insights. If I have a listener who wants to get a hold of you and ask you some questions, or how does she do that?
Yeah, the best place is LinkedIn. You can find me on LinkedIn, Libby Greiwe, Greiwe, or you can go to theefficientadvisor.com and, connect with me there.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time and your insights.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. This was fun.